Mike Tyson, and he takes a jab that I like the language here that they use. Mike Tyson takes a jab at Hulu ahead of Mike's series premiere. They stole my life story and didn't pay me. Basically, they made we've talked a lot about documentaries. We talked about what was the one about the one about it's all about female criminals. That's what most of them are. The one on Netflix,
like Inventing Anna. Then The Dropout, and all of these biopics aren't necessarily true crime either. Like Madonna, Elena Fernandez was her name.
Or even one on Marilyn Monroe, right?
Marilyn Monroe.
We're also getting the ones about like Astroworld and the documentaries about actual events that have happened.
Those are, I'm tired of the biopics more than documentaries anyway, because that in a biopic you can editorialize, I think, even more than a documentary. But this one they announced early last year, right?
And he was against it right from the beginning because he wasn't involved.
Yeah, but I think his reasons for being against it were disingenuous and what we've been talking about, emotivist, against the people making it.
So you're saying that he's assuming intent as to what they're trying
Majorly,
to...
yeah.
I do want to know if there's... First of all, before anything, if there's like one of the few people in the world I wouldn't want to piss off, it's probably Iron Mike Tyson. Like, seems like a very, very stupid thing for a Hulu executive to do. I wonder if
they included the airplane altercation in the
documentary. One of my favorite memes of all time is a picture of Mike Tyson going like this, and he's got like white powder all over his nose. It says Mike Tyson after enjoying a powdered donut at a house party in 1988.
I mean, maybe they thought that if they involved him in making the series, that they wouldn't be able to cover the gritty realities of his life that he isn't proud of.
So I had to double take when I first read this, because my initial instinct is like, that's lame. Like, he should absolutely be allowed to be involved in the telling of his story. But the more I think about it, the more I wonder, do you actually get at a bit more truth if you don't have them involved?
Why are other public figures like Madonna allowed to be so heavily involved in the telling of their story?
Some public figures are and some public figures are not, and you have to put certain disclosures on it when they're involved versus when they're not. So like the movie House of Gucci, and Lady Gaga played Donatella, or is it House of Versace?
Donatella
Versace.
Okay, it must be House of Versace because I'm mixing this up.
There's one about Versace.
Whoever
House of Gucci is the one that
just came out. Yep. Lady Gaga plays the wife that orders her husband's murder, and the woman is still alive, and she was not involved at all. And apparently reached out to Lady Gaga, and Lady Gaga was like, "No, I'm not going to talk to you about it."
She probably couldn't for legal reasons with the studio,
right? And I think some of it is like you have to pay for the rights, like you pay differently. I think you're right. There is a level of, if he's involved, then they have to defer to some of what he says. Like, he can be like, "No, that didn't happen this way," or I don't want to depict it that way. He's involved. Exactly.
So do they get? Is it possible? Now, I don't trust any film studio that wants to make money to make it 100% accurate. I expect them to take liberties at just about every corner. But who do I trust more to tell an accurate story of their life? Do I trust Mike Tyson to embellish for good reasons, or do I want to trust Hulu to embellish for bad reasons? Of course, that's me putting the onus. Like, I'm actually putting words in their mouth that I'm assuming that they're going to cover things he doesn't want covered.
Well, it was weird because his criticisms of how they went about this honestly seemed to have nothing to do with him personally, and more about his race and the fact that this is a black story, which is a strange way to put it, because it's intensely personal and unique to his life, which doesn't reflect most ordinary people or most other black people. He's lived an extremely unique life.
To have a movie made about you, you usually have lived somewhat of a unique
I don't know
existence.
why he would call it a black story.
So he says, don't let Hulu fool you. I won't support their story about my life. It's not 1822. It's 2022. They stole my life story and didn't pay me. And then he uses some very language that I cannot use to describe it, and describes
Can we
the
just
Hulu.
beep it?
We're not
Alludes to
doing.
being
I am not doing that.
a black man sold at auction.
Yeah.
That's all.
So it says
Yeah.
His latest post comes after a publication was made on the same social media platform where he praised UFC president Dana White for allegedly refusing to promote the Hulu series. So they went around him, tried to get paid Dana White millions of dollars to promote the series without consulting him or paying him anything. Because honestly, wouldn't he be the best promotion for the project, right? Like usually, but then that comes with him.
Maybe they thought they would get more promotion from the negative feedback from Mike Tyson than anything.
Which in some ways they did. I had no idea this was happening until he started complaining about it.
Yeah, exactly.
It says Hulu.
And he called them the streaming version of the Slave Master.
Yes, that's very
just out of pocket. Like I don't understand the point he's trying to make.
So,
because he wasn't involved. It would be different if he were involved in it and then they kicked him out of the project and didn't compensate him or something like that.
Yeah.
But allow people the freedom to do what they want.
Does
Let
this
it go.
have anything to do with the fact that now that with social media, like almost everyone's going to be a public figure of some sort, so it feels like you should have some ownership over your story to be told when it's being told by other
if there's
people?
something defamatory or untrue in the project, then call it out and proceed from there if you need to. But just him not being involved in it isn't reason to use such extreme language.
I also wonder, is this language backed up with any action? Like, is he suing Netflix? Did he send a cease and desist order to the production team? Like,
I don't think he can.
Why? I mean, like, if
he thinks there's something defamatory
How
in
would
it,
he know
can
that?
he?
How would he know that without seeing it?
I'm not okay. So I'm not a legal expert, but theoretically, they are profiting off his image, and he's a public figure. And there are, in cases, from what I understand, and this is, I will go to law school later, but there are certain claims that people have to like privacy or to promoting their own image, right? So in some ways, I could see something along the lines of he should have, if they did not reach out to him, he didn't turn down the offer to be involved, or if he thinks that they are using his likeness, his image, or using his reputation to promote their movie, he might be entitled to some kind of compensation, or at least some sort of say in the project.
But unauthorized documentaries and books and autobiographies have been made for as long as time is.
But sometimes they can't come out because they're challenged legally. I'm not saying that he would win in court, but like I think if you're going to make a really intense statement on social media, you should probably back it up in the real world with action against it.
So here's a comment from the showrunner talking about the unauthorized nature of the project. She says, "We just wanted to tell an unbiased story and have the audience decide what they think or feel. Challenging what people think they know about Mike and hoping that they come away from the series with something else to think about. Whether you like him or hate him, does the story make you question how complicit society has been? That is the intention. That is what that was the North Star for the writers' room as we were crafting these stories. So it's about what society's interpretation of his actions, how we have judged Mike. I consider him to be a fantastic comeback story in the mainstream. Like,
I don't know much about him.
From his highs in the boxing career to time in jail to then coming out and having
he did an episode of Law and Order SVU.
He's got a very successful podcast. He's got a very successful weed business, from what I understand. Like he's kind of come around to be like he's looked at as like a well-liked public figure now after the disgrace of the Evander Holyfield ear-biting incident, and then the face tattoo itself was a whole thing, and it was kind of like his own version of like Britney Spears shaving her head.
Okay,
right?
Yeah, but her hair can grow back.
Yeah, like.
You can't
Well,
undo.
little
really
did Mike
just take
Tyson
that off one day.
Little did Tyson know what he was going to do for face tattoos being like a thing now that now face tattoos are a thing. Far less common back then. He's what I would consider like a redemption story of sorts in the world today. I also wonder if someone is like he's made comments recently about how he feels like his life is like he's not going to be alive for much longer. Like he doesn't
worrying.
He doesn't elaborate, but he just says he feels like he's at like the.
I mean, I totally understand, especially if he's not in a good place right now, why he wouldn't want the lows of his life to be broadcast and dramatized to millions of people.
Yep.
I don't know if he plans on watching this himself to see whether there are fabricated parts of the story, but I don't think it would be a good idea for him to watch it anyway if it bothers him that much.
Is it mostly about the compensation? I mean, I feel like it's the compensation that bothers him the most.
Of course, and
and rightfully so.
I mean, like I said,
yeah, but he's saying that it's about like his race that they decided to not involve him, and I just don't see any basis for that.
Or I wonder if in some ways because our country has had a, like since 2020, it's been really focusing on like Black American and telling Black American stories. If in some ways they specifically they wouldn't have produced this had the last 2 years not happened.
Also,
you know what I mean? Like he might have gotten his wish that this wouldn't have existed if we weren't culturally in a place that we are right now. That's just a theory.
Also, if you go on Hulu, if you go on Netflix, if you go on Amazon Prime, there's always a subsection of movies you can watch that say tell black stories. So it is hypocritical of them to push the narrative of telling black stories but not compensating the people they're being told about. That's generalized.
I understand that. And he said at the time that they announced its production that it's a prime example of how Hulu's corporate greed led to this tone-deaf cultural misappropriation of his life story. To make this announcement during Black History Month only confirms Hulu's concern for dollars over respect for black story rights. Hollywood needs to be more sensitive to black experiences, especially after all that has transpired in 2020.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely correct. Like, or at the very least, quit virtue signaling and actually do what you're going to say on the back end too.
I disagree because they're telling Mike Tyson's life story because it's about Mike Tyson, not because of his race.
I'm just saying that they should.
See, but it's not clear. Like, again, I give credit to this statement if they did announce it during Black. Like, I just don't trust Hulu to be like that nuanced of a like, no, it's about the athlete and the individual. Like, they pick certain projects based on what they think audiences are going to respond to. And I think having announced this during Black History Month, like, it's a little like on the edge there. Like, even if they don't say, oh, we're telling a black story, like, it seems like intentional. They didn't pick a different athlete. They picked Mike Tyson.
Weird then that they didn't anticipate him speaking out against it.
They might have just assumed he wouldn't. Like, I don't know. Like, or they didn't think that far ahead.
Or like you said, they knew he would and are like, this is going to hype up this what we're presenting as an unbiased thing. Because I mean, it's totally right.
Like, see, he hates it that we're gonna like tell the real side of the story.
Yeah, and they're trying to give this calm response, which is like, look, we're trying to be unbiased. And so that might explain why we couldn't have had him involved in the production, because then we would have had to incorporate his wishes, which might have distorted the nature of storytelling.
And
that's how I felt about the one we were talking about, James Franco getting cast as Fidel Castro. And
by his daughter, right?
It's really about his daughter, and his daughter is hired as a consultant for biographical accuracy. And I was wondering how you can assure that doesn't manipulate the telling of the story. Like, I just don't think in general in a biopic the person of interest should be necessarily involved.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's kind of interesting. I mean, it'd be really interesting to get like a contract lawyer who specifically works on this on the show and get them to comment on it, because I think it goes both ways. If you have them involved, you might have more exclusive details or might better be able to depict certain aspects of what happened that we don't really, otherwise you're relying on like people who may not know the person super well, people who say they know Mike Tyson, but do they really, versus like,
that could be even less accurate than whatever they get from him.
Or just like headline stuff. Like, I skipped ahead in this article, and it's from the series is created by Steven Rogers, who created I, Tonya. And if you've seen that movie, it's about Tonya Harding, the figure skater. And I believe she was a consultant on the movie. I know she talked to Margot Robbie about it at some point. I don't remember. Maybe she declined to be involved.
Did Tyson say whether maybe they asked him to be involved and he said no and they went forward anyway? Is that possible?
Because if they had asked him, he would have said yes, it seems.
No, I think he would have said no, and they were like, well, we're doing it anyways. And he would have been like,
so I think that would make him he might be intentionally just omitting that part.
Yeah. Well, he said, I don't support their story about my life. Like, he could have been like, hey, we'd love to include you in this project. And he's like, no,
but he wants it to be all roses.
Or he wants it to not happen. And they were like, well, it is happening. But you can either be in it or like be involved in it or not. And he was like, I don't want to happen.
And I would be pissed if that were me too.
The producer who's making this, who spoke in that comment, is also producing Sister Act 3. I wonder if we'll be going.
No, you can't do that.
You can't.
No. No.
Modernizing Sister Act seems like a horrible idea.
You could never.
No. She was also involved in Grey's Anatomy, which means she's probably mentored under Shonda Rhimes.
Shonda Rhimes is not a good writer, in my opinion.
I love Joe Morton, but the show Scandal, which I felt started fantastic, became one of the most it's kind of like how people on Twitter think that that's how people talk in the real world. People how they talk on Twitter.
The dialogue is what bothers me.
Yeah,
It's
the most hyperbolic, over the top, and the only person who pulls it off in that show is Joe Morton, because Joe Morton is freaking awesome. But every time, or I guess you could say Kerry Washington does as well when she does it. But whenever any of the side characters try to do it, I'm like, nope, no.
Just corny.
So we'll see. And I do want to ask. So I was trying to think of when it comes to this type of documentary, if we're talking docuseries, biopic, what is more important to you, accuracy or entertainment?
I'm not sure, because I was thinking about this with the Elvis biopic. Are they going to show the ugly parts of his life, or are they just going to make it seem like it was all? I mean, I'm sure
and
they
how much
showed
ugly?
some.
How much ugly?
And
can
which
you
things
show?
are you going to omit, because it's going to shatter people's perceptions of this kind of mythologized figure in Americana? But
I think I want accuracy, in part because I think accuracy is ultimately what is entertaining. If you produce,
I don't know about that.
I think
so
if you
much
produce a fluff piece that's all roses, then it's not really you might remember it, but it doesn't have the same nuance. I like films that show the complexity of people, and part of accuracy is showing good and bad or problematic, and letting your viewer have the independence to decide where that person falls in the end.
So much of like somebody like Elvis, or even like a Mike Tyson, so much of their reputation becomes a mythologized version of themselves that I don't know if accuracy is even really all that super possible to make super interesting in comparison to what they're seen as collectively as a whole by society.
I mean, but I would argue that was what was interesting about watching I, Tonya. I don't care, no offense to figure skaters, it's not something I've ever followed very intensely, but I know Tonya Harding had that girl's knee broken, or she broke that girl's knee so she could get on the team. The myth of it, and the way this filmmaker, which gives me hope for this series, he had done it where he was he has the characters break the fourth wall, look at you and say, I know they made it seem like I attacked her on the ice, but that's not what happened. And you can understand where there are some liberties taken, but on the other hand, it gives a more full perspective than what the myth has. The myth leaves you far away from the reality, and I think what people want is to feel connected to the story.
I was reading I was reading up on I don't know if you're both probably too young to know who Carrie Strug was. She was a gymnast at the 1996 Olympics who got hurt. Her ankle got hurt, and she had to do I don't even know what I'm not a gymnast, so
the uneven bars, right?
It was something like that, and she had to land something in, and there's this whole amazing feel-good moment in kind of American Olympic history of her landing this on one ankle, on one leg, right? And then you go and you look into it and you find out that she regretted doing it and all of the bad stuff. And I understand that makes me kind of I don't like that.
But let the moment be what it was.
Yeah, I want her to have all the justice for whatever may have happened. If she whatever way she does, but for society, those moments mean something for the collective consciousness of the country they represent. So I like maybe because I like storytelling, I like the story told, the aspect of it that's the story that's been told of this amazing moment in history, as opposed to the harsh reality of what actually was.
But I think that
for good or for better or worse,
knowing that these amazing moments come with costs, that is ultimately what makes them great, right? She risked probably breaking her ankle and ruining her career permanently or something. Or again, I have to go back to Tonya Harding because that's the one I've actually seen. I didn't realize that she got barred from the sport completely to the point where she could not even coach, and that was the only thing she'd done in her entire life. So basically the Olympic Committee took away her ability to make a living. I think this is a really complicated statement about competition and sport and things like that. And although that figure skating moment for a lot of people is just crazy figure skaters, desperate to get on the Olympic team, competitiveness, it was also a commentary on what it is like to make your child into an elite athlete with very few resources and fallback options from an early age.
I think it's especially difficult when these things involve living subjects.
Yes.
I don't think that's a good idea, and it's easier what you're saying, it's easier to make it entertaining and make it more mythologized when that person is long gone.
For better
and all
or worse.
the people they knew can't meddle with what you're writing.
And then you have the family and everybody is going to be involved saying they wouldn't have want this story told. They wouldn't have, but you as a society always have that comfort of knowing maybe they didn't actually believe that. Like the family of some celebrity can be like, they wouldn't have wanted this to be made. And you can just say, maybe not.
Well, also, again, to go back to Mary's point, do they have to pick Mike Tyson, who is alive right now and clearly opposed to this project? Like, isn't Jackie Robinson the baseball player?
There are a lot of people to choose from. Definitely.
Yeah, aren't there other alternatives?
Like, it seems like they're looking for outrage or controversy.
I mean, it's hard not to think of it as like
Pete Rose is still alive. You'd make a. I was talking about Pete Rose the other day because the thing came up about like.
What does he do? I don't know. Who
he was a baseball player. Thanks for watching this clip, guys. If you want to see full episodes or follow us on social media, links are in the description below. Bye.